welcome back to Trees and Turtles. My name's Imogen and in today's video I am talking about religion. If you're not already subscribed, make sure to do that, give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram and let's get started. Before I just say anything, I just want to say that I'm going to be mentioning some pretty heavy topics about death and mental health, so if that is not for you, and I will put this in the video title also, please skip because I do not want to affect your mental health negatively in any way. Having said that, let's talk about religion because this is something I never talk about on my channel and this is quite a vulnerable topic for me. So a little bit of background, I was raised Catholic and if any of you were also raised Catholic, you'll know that this is a spectrum. So a lot of people can be culturally Catholic where they don't really, they don't observe it, but it's kind of like their culture, and they do the hymns, they go at Christmas and Easter, and it's all good vibes. But I was raised the other kind of Catholic, which is sort of super conservative and very it was my entire life, okay? And that did a lot of damage to my mental health because it just sort of I was thinking about hell all the time, I had chronic anxiety, I was God's always mad at me, and honestly, the sort of, the damage that religion did to me, has been sort of unparalleled. I mean, a lot of trauma has occurred in my life, but that has been one of the biggest things, and it has taken me a really long time to come to terms with. So, I am not currently religious, okay? I stopped going to church in my second year? No, I stopped going in my first year? Yeah, I think I stopped going in my first year of university. But it was really kind of a struggle to come to terms with it and everything because I was just yeah, it was really just not a good time for me. I was in a lot of turmoil and a lot of bad things were happening to me and a lot of bad things have happened to me in my life. And throughout my childhood I was oh, well, this will get better because, God has a plan for everything and, everything happens for a reason, and then just more and more bad stuff would happen, and I was this kind of sucks, and I'd be praying, I'd be please God, take this away, and make my life better, because I'm really sad, and I'm only 13, and I kind of don't want to be here anymore, and then it just kind of felt like I was yelling into a void, if that makes sense, and yeah, no sort of massive angel ever appeared in my bedroom and waved a wand and made it better, no matter how well I asked or how many prayers I said or all of the things that I did to be the perfect person as defined by my religion made zero difference to how my life actually was. And it did not stop me experiencing a lot of trauma, and I really did not feel that anybody was there when I was asking for help. So I basically lost faith in religion for that reason, and also a lot of stuff I didn't really feel. Obviously, I've done a different video on this. I'm bisexual, so there's the whole sort of Catholic Church being hostile to queer people aspect as well, and for a long time that aspect to me was really, really buried deep inside. I had a lot of internalized and externalized homophobia because I was oh, this is bad, and it took me until I was nearly 21 to accept that I was actually bisexual. And obviously I've come a long way since then. I'm now super proud of it. I made a whole video about it. I was I'm bi, this is great. But that sort of confidence has come from a lot years of work and a lot of fear and sort of soul searching, I guess. So just to talk a little bit about religious trauma is very pervasive because when you're sort of as religious as I was, it is your entire identity. You cannot imagine a life where you are not religious, and the idea, and fear is there to keep you in line, because for my entire life I believed that as soon as I stepped out of line I would legitimately explode and go to hell. And I read there were a lot of religious books around the house in my childhood, and I read a lot of very scary stuff. In retrospect, I read pretty much the entirety of Revelation at 14, which was not good for my mental health at all. And then I realised something, which was that a lot of the people around me and in religion would only take the parts of the Bible literally that suited them, right? So the Bible literally says not to wear mixed fabrics. And I'll try and find the chapter and verse because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but a lot of people, they're wearing polycottons, that's a mixed fabric, but then they're saying, if you're gay, you'll go to hell, which actually is a mistranslation, but I can get more into that in the comments if you are interested. Again, I'll try and put resources in the comments because I don't want to say stuff and then not back it up, which is a key failing of religion. But anyway, the point is that a lot of this stuff was presented as false certainty, and also uncertainty was weaponized. So it's like, oh, you don't know what happens after you die, or I know what happens after you die, but you don't because you're a kid, so I'm going to tell you what happens after you die. And then you're going to be scared of it your whole life. And then I was scared of it my whole life, and it destroyed my mental health. And I was like, oh, I want to die, but if I die, I'm going to go to hell. So I felt really trapped. But anyway, all of that was like a nice big package of religious trauma. And the fear aspect was absolutely huge. Like, I was legitimately terrified for the vast majority of my life, mostly due to religion. There were other things going on, but also it was mostly due to religion. And seriously, the fear, until you have experienced religious fear, like, it is astonishing, like, what it can do to a child's psychological state, okay? So, the biggest thing I struggled when I was, like, coming out of religion was being at peace with death. So, obviously, a lot of people, when they sort of leave religion, they really struggle with, like, what happens when you die? Oh, I'm an atheist, am I going to hell? Like, if you're asking whether you're going to hell, you're probably not an atheist, but anyway, I'm not an atheist, actually. I'm an agnostic, and I will explain why later. But being at peace with death was really, really hard for me, because my entire life I'd been taught to be, like, terrified of death, and be like, oh, this is, like, the big moment of judgment, you're going to be, like, talking to God, and God's gonna, like, look at your soul, and God's gonna be like, oh my gosh, what did you do? And it's gonna be really scary, and if you were a bad person, you're gonna go to hell, and you're gonna be burned forever and ever and ever. And all of that would be just, like, terrifying for me, and I'd be, like, watching my birthdays tick past and being like, I'm getting older, I'm going to go to hell, that kind of thing. So being at peace with death was a big struggle. But I am at peace with death right now, okay? Like, if I died tomorrow, yeah, it would be sad, but I would be fine with it. Like, I did mention that earlier that I was going to mention, like, not being alive anymore, and I have made several attempts to do that in my, like, teenage and early 20s, like, years. 2 specific attempts, but, like, those kind of thoughts were occurring to me pretty much throughout my life. And that sort of, it came out of, like, a place of desperation, as I wanted my life as I knew it to end, but I didn't necessarily want to not be here. But also, for someone who, like, who sought, like, non-existence, if that makes sense, for someone who sought, like, non-existence out of desperation, I am, like, remarkably at peace with, like, I was very scared of death then, but I'm also, like, I'm in a much better place mentally now, and I'm also, like, much more at peace with the idea of death. And the big turning point for me, I'm going to find it, actually, because this is something that I just really wanted to talk about, and the big turning point for me was reading a Marcus Aurelius quote. And this, you've probably heard of this one, but basically, it goes, live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, then they will not judge you for, like, I'm going to find it. It's on my lock screen, actually. Okay, here we go. Live a good life. If there are gods and they are just, then they will not care how devout you have been, but will welcome you based on the virtues you've lived by. If there are gods but unjust, then you should not want to worship them. If there are no gods, then you will be gone, but you will have lived a noble life that will live on in the memories of your loved ones. Okay, so Marcus Aurelius said this, and the line that really stood out to me was, if there are gods but unjust, then you should not want to worship them. And the God that I experienced when I was growing up fit this description exactly. So, you know, a lot of bad things happen in the world. There's a lot of pain that I saw and that I experienced personally, and this spoke to me very much of either an unjust or an uncaring God. And I realised that to worship such a deity would actually be an indictment of my character. So it's like, you know, it's like people who sort of idolise billionaires who are arseholes, right? Like, this person is supposedly all-powerful, and they could make your life so much better. Like, you're a 13-year-old and you've got mental health trauma and you don't want to be here anymore. Like, if I could, like, be God and I could see this person who's struggling, I would 100% send an angel to give them a hug. I would wave my wand and make their life better. Would I leave them suffer? Absolutely not. Like, no fucking way. So that kind of, like, it set off, like, an anger in me, and I was like, you know what? No just God would allow all of this bad stuff to happen. So this line, if there are gods but unjust, you should not want to worship them, I was like, you know what? fuck this, I'm out, okay? So that really, it set me free. And you know what? This quote I literally found on Reddit, of all places. My red flag is I am an active Reddit user, okay? And I was reading a religious thread one day and I came across this quote and I'd never seen it before, and I was like, fuck, this really resonates with me. And I was like, and it seriously, like, it didn't solve my problems overnight, but it was probably reading that quote was the single biggest thing that actually, like, deprogrammed me from religion, and it took away my fear. And I'm actually getting really emotional talking about this, but it really, yeah, it just everything made sense, and I was like, yeah, this makes sense now. So I just want to talk a little bit about agnostic versus atheist. So obviously an atheist is someone who believes there is no God. An agnostic is someone who is not sure whether there is a God or not. I am not an atheist. I'm an agnostic. So I'm not sure whether there's a God or not, okay? I am entirely like, there may be the God that, like, I was told existed my whole childhood, okay? Who's, like, vengeful, there's a heaven, there's a hell, and I'm probably going to the latter, okay? But the point is, even if all that is true, I still don't want to be, like, a follower of that deity, because that God is unjust and leaves people to suffer, and I'm not worshipping someone who is unjust and leaves people to suffer, because what kind of person does that make me? And, like, if, you know, it's basically like someone who's a bad boss, okay? So your boss is a bad boss, and your boss comes along and tells you to be an arsehole to the people further down the chain. And if you obey that boss, then you're an arsehole to people further down the chain. And if you say no to that boss and you get fired, then you took a moral stand, and you should be proud of yourself for not caving to that bad boss. So I guess that's kind of like my reasoning there. And I guess this has been a really heavy video, but I just wanted to end on a really positive note. I've found a lot of, like, spirituality in other places. So specifically music and nature. I've been to a lot of live music, and I like to go out for walks and sort of sit in nature and listen to the birds, and I really feel connected in a sort of, like, I really feel like the energy is really good outdoors and really good at concerts, and I feel really a sort of like a sense of spiritual connection to the world, to other people, and a sense of real peace, especially when I go to, like, concerts or when I go out and sit out in nature. So you don't need to worship a deity in order to find spiritual peace and in order to be spiritually fulfilled. And you can find a lot of, like, peace and happiness in forging your own path and doing what you know is right. So follow your internal moral compass, and please, for fuck's sake, go to a gig, okay? Alright, that is all I have to say about religion. Any, like, questions in the comments, I'm more than happy to answer them. That's it. Subscribe to my channel, follow me on Instagram for more, like, random musings on life. I love you all. Okay, bye!